What phone apps do photographers use? These are the 7 I use the most. Hi and welcome to episode 70 of the Photography Explained podcast. I'm your host Rick, and in each episode I will explain one photographic thing to you in plain English in less than 10 minutes-ish without the irrelevant details. What I tell you is based on my lifetime of photographic experience and not Google. Before I go on, if you have a question you'd like me to answer, just go to photographyexplainedpodcast.com/start. Looks like I need to reword that sentence, doesn't it? Because I made a mess of that, which is a shame, but let's get on with it. Here is the answery bit. Now, I've upped this from 5 to 7 because there's 2 that I forgot, which was a very remiss of me, so apologies, Canon and Olympus. The 7 phone apps I use the most in my photography are, open brackets, on my iPhone XS, close brackets, Lightroom, Camera app, Photos, the Photographer's Ephemeris, Photoshop Fix, Canon Connect, Olympus OI.Share. Now I'm talking here about taking and editing photos. There's loads of other apps that I use, but I won't bore you with those because this is meant to be about photography. Sound good? Okay, let's go through each of these in a little more detail. Not too much, of course. Lightroom Mobile. Lightroom Mobile's free. If you want to sync to Lightroom on a desktop, you have to have a paid plan. It's called the Creative Cloud Photography Plan. Now that's what I'm on, and that's how I pay for Lightroom and Photoshop. It cost me, I think it's £9.98 a month. And I have to say it's a bargain, but I'm talking free here. So Lightroom on the iPad. Oh, I need to make an apology here. I use an iPhone and an iPad. Now, I've never held an Android phone of any shape or form, ever. Closest I get to it was a Nokia before smartphones were invented, so apologies, but I'm in the Apple/Windows infrastructure, which is interesting. Infrastructure, I'm sure I meant ecosystems then, but not to worry. So I'm talking to you now as an iPhone user and an iPad user, so if you're Android, apologies. But the good news is you can still certainly get Lightroom on an Android device. And it's free on both, which is a recent change, which is nice. So if you haven't got the paid plan, you have Lightroom on an iPad and a phone. And the two will obviously sync through the cloud because they do, which is very, very clever. What do I do on my iPad with Lightroom? Now, obviously, I edit most of my photos on my desktop PC because I've got a large 32-inch... I had to look at the monitor and see how big it was. I've got a 32-inch monitor. I've got a PC. I've got hard drives. I've got backups and everything. So, sure, I edit most of my photos in Lightroom on a desktop. So, why do I like Lightroom Mobile? And again, I'm going to try and stick to the free stuff that you can do with it. Well, you've got a camera in Lightroom which takes raw photos, which was when I found that one out, I was really interested. So you can take raw photos and you can edit them, and the editing capabilities of Lightroom, as you'd expect, as it's made by Adobe, are pretty outstanding. Editing photos, it's a lovely, lovely experience. What I like doing is I can chuck collections of photos, I can sync them over from my desktop onto Lightroom. Just the same as if you had photos on your phone, you could import them into Lightroom. So again, this is free stuff that anybody can do. So you can add the photos to Lightroom. No idea what happens with phone memory when you've got these things in so many different devices. And then you can just scroll through them, you can rate them, you can give them star ratings, and you can edit them. Organising photos is a real breeze. On a shoot, I will quite often put the photos onto my desktop, sync them in the collection to Lightroom, and then I'll lie on my sofa and go through them. My first edit is choosing the photos I want to edit, so that's another thing that I do, but that's a paid feature, sorry. So you can get your photos from either your Lightroom camera or from whatever photos app you use. Whatever camera you use, you can import them into Lightroom. They're there, you can organise them, like I say, but it's the editing which is the real thing. And you can export the photos, you can share them, you can share directly from the app, which is really good. And when you share them, it doesn't share them as a raw file, because if you share a raw file with somebody who hasn't got Lightroom or other specialist editing software, they won't be able to open it. So it's got that one covered. So that's Lightroom. Sorry to go on, but in my opinion, it is the best editing software out there. Next one is the Camera app, the good old default basic Apple camera app. Now I use this for personal stuff, family stuff, snaps, photos of things, just reminders. I also use the Camera app just for behind the scenes shots. And I also use the Camera app for all the videos I record, because there isn't a YouTube channel for this podcast yet, but there will be. But I have my own YouTube channels, and I just use my iPhone and use the Camera app, and that's it. I also use camera app for stuff created in Canva, which I use like on my podcast, the artwork and everything. Next one, which ties in nicely with the camera app, is the Photos app. Again, another default Apple app, basic one. I use this to look at photos taken with my phone. I had photos and other things I created on my PC. And this is one of the ways I've bridged using an iPhone and a PC through apps like Photos, because I can get to the photos on my phone, on iCloud on my desktop. Again, it's free, it's a default app. It's not fancy, but it does the job, and that's all I'm bothered about really. Now, I also use the app to manage and download the videos I've taken using the Apple camera device from the cloud onto my PC. That gets them into my, in very loose terms with quote marks, professional system where things are backed up and what have you. I've got cloud backups and everything. But I use the Photos app for this, and it's just dead simple. You've probably gathered by now I'm a fan of keeping things as simple as possible. That's enough for the simple stuff. Now for the complicated one. This is great. Now, I had to warm up for this because I can't say the word. The photographer's Ephemeris. I said it. This is a paid app. Costs just under £10 at the time of recording this. And this is the tagline of the people who create this fantastic app. It goes like this, and I'm quoting direct here, and I don't have a problem with that. See how the light will fall on the land, day or night, for any location on Earth. Wow, that's something, isn't it? That's why I wanted to read it out, because I just love that there's not a wasted word there. It tells you what you need to know. So like I say, you have to pay for it, which I've done. I'm a paying customer. I think it's a lifetime purchase anyway. I'm not being paid to say this. I'm a paying customer and I use it. And it works on Apple and Android, which is good news. So I just checked the App Store and there it was, $9.99. It's a super clever device. I've used the term super before a word. How very un-English of me. So what do I use it for? Sunrise. On holiday, I do a lot of sunrise photography. And I will find something that looks interesting. I've got a rough idea where the sun is. And then I will fire up the app. And it looks a bit daunting at first. It looks a bit complicated, but it's not. You just got to work out which coloured line you're looking at. And what I can do with this app is I can find out exactly where the sun will rise and where it will appear above the land. Perfect, because that's the moment I'm after on any sunrise shoot. And I use it all the time. I also use it so I know what time the sun will be on a particular elevation of a building. Very important for my architectural photography work. Now, it does loads of other things, moon cycles, all sorts of stuff, but that's what I use it for. Two main features. I should learn the other ones really, but as with all these things, that's what I need. And you can also save the locations as well. So I can go to a spot, I can choose where I'm taking my sunrise photo from, and I can get there in the morning, in the dark, and I know where I am, and it's great. And I also know which direction to point the camera in, which helps because I can get everything framed up. So well worth a tenner, well worth a tenner. Next one, Photoshop Fix. Now, I've had this for ages and I'm pretty sure it's free. And as I've said previously, on the desktop, I use Photoshop to remove stuff and no more. On my phone and my iPad, I use Photoshop to remove stuff and no more. That's what it does. It removes things. Brilliant. Lightroom can't do that as well. Can do it a bit, but nowhere near as well. Last two, Canon Connect and Olympus OI.Share. Snappy title, Olympus. When I can't see the viewfinder, best example I can give you is when my camera is 5 meters up in the air on top of my painter's pole. If I'm using my Canon camera, obviously it's the Canon Connect. If it's the Olympus, it's the Olympus. Obviously, I probably didn't need to say that, did I? You could have worked that one out yourself. So my camera's 5 meters up on a painter's pole, probably wobbling around as well because I've not got that sorted yet, like strapping it to a tripod or anything. It becomes quite a challenge when you got 2 kilos of stuff on a 5 meters up a pole, keeping it stable. But what I do is I use the app to look through the viewfinder of the camera and take the photo. That's it. That's all I use it for. You can use it to go through photos and everything, but I use it when I can't use a self-timer or I can't get to my camera. That's the only times I use it. And that is pretty much it for apps that I use. And again, I'm talking about apps that I use to take and edit photos. There's a shockingly high number of other apps that I use in my business, but I'm not going to bore you with those. Now, my last section is called the talky bit. I think I've talked about all this already, so let's just check my script. Yes, there is a script. Yeah, I use an iPhone XS. Sorry, I don't know anything about Android phones. But the point is this, and I will make this point again because it's worth making, even if I do say so myself. Like with a lot of the other things that I've talked about, I have pretty much one app with one use and that's it. I've simplified my apps down to this small number, and some of the apps I have one specific use for. That didn't make sense, did it? I'm keeping it in because it's real. So keeping it simple is something I love to do. Okay, my one-line summary. I use the 7 apps on my phone and my iPad to help me take and edit photos, and I don't use any others. And believe me, I know this is going beyond one line now. I have tried others. I write about this on my blog a lot. I've mentioned this in other episodes. I've tried everything, and now I just have the things that I need and love and use. Right, enough waffle. Next episode, what is the best free photo editing app for iPhone/iPad? Now, what do you reckon it is? It's Lightroom, isn't it? I just decided that there's so much good in Lightroom and so much clarity from having one thing that I wanted to talk about it a bit more. Okay, I'm done. Thank you very much for listening to my small but perfectly formed podcast. To find out more and do stuff to help me, check out photographyexplainedpodcast.com/start. That's it. No more. This episode was brought to you by 2 pork pies and an egg mayonnaise sandwich and some salt and vinegar crisps. Very nice. I've been Rick McAvoy. Thanks again very much for listening to me and for giving me slightly less than 14 minutes of your valuable time. And I will see you on the next episode. Cheers from me, Rick.